First question about Buffalo's budget. The city of Buffalo is facing financial crisis with a budget deficit projected around $40 million. The recently approved state budget includes multiple bailouts for Buffalo, each of them falling in line with proposals submitted by Mr. Scanlon.
So our question tonight to each of the candidates, and we will prompt you, what is the best way to get Buffalo out of the red without relying too heavily on taxpayers? And if elected, will your budget include a tax increase? Gentlemen, as you know, we've chosen names before this debate. And with that, Mr. Wyatt, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you for everyone that's out here today regarding this important time in our city's history. The budget has continued to be a big issue, and as you know, for several years, this budget was no different. I was one of two that voted against the budget again, and not because I was grandstanding because I was running for mayor, but because it didn't make sense again. We're selling off properties. We're selling, the controller just said that the properties that we're selling were getting us $7 million. Why do we continue to make these same mistakes and it all falls back on the taxpayer? Every bad decision falls back on the taxpayer. And so, again, I didn't vote for the budget because of those issues. But the other thing is, I think we could make some decisions that doesn't make it it hurts the taxpayer. You know, we could be cutting overtime for police and fire. We could cut the administration staff. You know, right now they have about 11 people making over $100,000. So while everybody else, while they're eating steak and lobster, everybody else is eating hamburger. So we have to make good, strong decisions that make sense. And so if I am elected mayor, I will look at practical things that don't fall back on the taxpayer, because many times the same bad decisions fall back on who? The taxpayer.
Mr. Scanlon, would you like to rebut? He essentially invoked your administration.
Sure. Thank you. First of all, Mayoral, Dave, thank you, and Channel 4 for hosting us at D'Youville University. Thank you for having us here. You know, I think there's two ways you can look at our budget situation. A doom and gloom scenario, and the fact that people think Buffalo's best days are behind them. People up here feel that way. I don't. I look at our budget as an opportunity. I look at our challenges as an opportunity for us to get better. I can tell you when I arrived in the mayor's office back in October, we were faced with a $17 million hole in the current fiscal year. And through vacancy control measures, freeze on spending throughout the different departments, we were able to close that gap this year. And you referenced a $40 million hole. No, it was a $70 million hole that we were faced in the upcoming fiscal year. We got to work. We decided we had to do more with less. We cut $30 million out of the budget through direct cuts to departments and other vacancy control measures. We got creative and came up with $15 million in additional revenue. And then I take umbrage with the fact that they were referred to as bailouts. We got very creative. We could have gone to New York State and asked for money. We didn't. We decided we would fix this situation ourselves. We asked for authorization for two key initiatives. One being a 3% hotel occupancy tax on hotel rooms in the city of Buffalo, which equates to about $4 on a hotel room that would be paid mostly by, almost exclusively, by out-of-town visitors who utilize our services and would keep Buffalo beautiful. The other being the Buffalo Parking and Mobility Authority, which, although some think it's a gimmick, it's not. It's a strategic plan over the next 4 years to use proceeds of those sales along with recurring revenue that'll come from that to rectify the budget over the course of the next several years.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon. Mr. Whitfield, to you, sir. The question is, what is the best way to get Buffalo out of the red without relying too heavily on taxpayers? And if elected, will your budget include a tax increase?
Well, thank you. As I've always said, the first thing to do to address this issue is to find out why we got here, how we got here, what the deficit is. We need to understand how we got here, what these systems are, what the problems are within our current systems that cause this issue. And so I would ask for an independent audit of the books of the city of Buffalo. This has been a moving target from day one. We still do not have real clarity on where we are in terms of our deficit. I believe that the proposals are short-term political proposals to systemic generational issues. And I think that we need to have leadership that brings people together, that addresses this in a inclusive way. We need to bring the people, the residents of the city, and other departments, other people, Buffalo Fiscal Authority, all of these need to be at the table. And we need to understand that we need a plan that whoever the mayor is going forward, that the community gets behind and supports, one that has a chance of being successful.
Thank you, Mr. Whitfield. Mr. Tyson Thompson, you have the floor, sir. What is the best way to get Buffalo out of the red without relying too heavily on taxpayers?
Hey, thank you so much for the question, and so happy to be here for this important debate and conversation. So, first and foremost, this is a structural deficit. It's at this point systemic. This has been years and years of overestimating revenue and underestimating the cost. We have to be smart. We have to be, just honest with our people. We're making these budgets. It seems as though we're just having a pie in the sky, a wag, a wild, blatant guess. We have to be honest with it. First, we have to do a full audit of our operations, figure out where our inefficiency lies, and then from there, figure out how we can keep frontline services. We're not going to tax our way out of the situation, and there's no silver bullet for it. This is not an episode of West Wing. But we have to do the hard, boring work of going over the budget first, then figuring out where the inefficiency lies, and then from there, finding equitable ways to structure the deficit. Maybe by raising property taxes, but it has to be equitably, not just from 0 to 8%, not just the tax bid or bid tax of 8%. We got to be strategic. And I think the best way to do it is to expand the tax base in the city of Buffalo. We have to make sure that as mayor, that I'll be bringing new industries to Buffalo, both public and private, to make sure that we're creating a thriving economy where people can work and people come to Buffalo for business, and then also expand and solve our deficit issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scanlon, to you now. You are in the unique situation where your proposed budget, which includes an 8% property tax increase, has passed the council, although with some reluctance. Your administration has presented a contingency plan of borrowing $30 million if revenue from your parking authority and bed tax does not pan out. Questions by some county and city leaders still remain on whether these two strategies will actually fill that multi-million-dollar gap. How will you ensure this will not fall on taxpayers down the road?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, it's not a matter of if we receive that revenue, it's a matter of when. And if for some reason it did not happen in the current fiscal year, we could borrow for the short period of time until that money comes in to pay that back. But I can tell you the gimmicks that are being talked about aren't the things that we're doing. These are strategic initiatives that will satisfy the city of Buffalo's budget and set us on a path to fiscal solvency in the next few years. The gimmicks that we've heard talked about are the deficit borrowing and things like that. Borrowing $75, $150, $200 million to try and fix the budget. That's like putting your mortgage payment that you can't afford on a credit card. And anyone who has a mortgage knows that's not the right way to do things. But we got to work. We cut $30 million out of the budget, went to New York State, worked with our partners in government, despite opposition from people on this stage to those initiatives. And those initiatives that we're talking about do not lead to $1 being laid at the feet of our taxpayers. This is $40, $50 million coming in through the proceeds of the sale of the parking ramp, alleviating the city of Buffalo of the maintenance and capital costs associated with that, while ensuring a yearly revenue continues to flow to the city of Buffalo. So again, we went to work. We got things done on behalf of the city of Buffalo, on behalf of our residents, working with the Common Council, who passed the budget with very few amendments to it. And again, so we're prepared to move forward, and over the course of next years, if you look at our 4-year plan, you see how we rectify the structural indifference.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon. We turn now to Mr. Ryan. Your proposal for the city's budget was not adopted by the state legislature. So do you still stand by your plan to issue debt service financing? And if elected, will your budget include a tax increase?
Yeah, I do stand by that plan. My campaign is about fixing the basics, potholes, plowing the streets. And you can't do that if you're broke. And one thing is for sure, the city is broke. They don't know how much their debt is this year, in 26, in 27. But one thing we do know is there's a structural imbalance. So the debt's following next year. We need to bring in the comptroller, Tom DiNapoli, to do an A to Z audit of the city, figure out how much our structural debt is, and then do what a business would do. If the city of Buffalo was a business, it would be a $600 million business, and they would restructure. That's the only way to avoid catastrophic increases, but also to get us back on balance. But you know what else we have to stop doing? We have to stop giving away taxpayer dollars. Chris Scanlon has received tens of thousands of dollars from Carl Palladino, and Carl Palladino has received tens of millions of dollars from the city of Buffalo. That ratio, like Chris, I would say you're a cheap date on this one. But I will tell you this. I'm going to take a pledge, and I wonder if Chris Scanlon, will you take the Palladino pledge with me? Will you stop giving away money?
Mr. Ryan and gentlemen, we are asking the questions. We are telling candidates not to ask questions.
Sure.
Please, if you'd like to ask us to ask a question, we will not, but you may do that.
I'll take the Palladino pledge, and that pledge is to stop giving money to Palladino and his MAGA allies.
We do have to move on, but Mr. Scanlon, you have an opportunity to rebut.
That didn't take long. I thought that would come up pretty soon tonight. But so we are improving services, unlike the senator said. We are fixing potholes. We've addressed 3,000 potholes since I came into office. We've allocated $17 million, the most in years, to repaving our streets. Nearly 200 streets will be repaved this year. And as far as the assertion that Carl Palladino is funding my campaign and fueling my campaign, I have not received $1 in this campaign from Carl Palladino. Who is fueling and funding my campaign are the 1,700 donors in Buffalo and Western New York who are funding my campaign. 97% of which are Buffalo and Erie, Buffalo and Western New York residents. 3,000 people requesting lawn signs. These are the people who are fueling my campaign, not special interest groups from Albany and New York City. And again, Carl Palladino has not donated a dollar. It's been brought up several times in the past and in recent days about William Palladino. William Palladino is the owner and CEO of Ellicott Development and a personal friend. William Palladino has donated to my campaign. And while we're talking about William Palladino, he is the same William Palladino that recently donated land to the city of Buffalo free of charge, where will house permanently the 514 Memorial. He's the one working with the city of Buffalo and financially assisting the city of Buffalo to open a new animal shelter. So I will continue to work with William Palladino as long as I am mayor.
Okay, we have to move on now.
We're moving on.
Sticking with you, Mr. Ryan, we allotted a minute 30 for that rebuttal. Sticking with you, Mr. Ryan, for this next question, you and Mr. Scanlon each submitted proposals to the state to help close the city's anticipated $40 million budget shortfall. Why do you think Governor Kathy Hochul chose your opponent's plans over yours? And though you've labeled Scanlon's plan a gimmick, you voted for it as part of the state budget. So how should voters view these contradictions?
So the city of Buffalo, asked for the plan of least resistance, the plan that would get the acting mayor through this budget year. It's tradition of the state is to defer to the mayor, whether they're elected or acting. So we deferred. They came and asked for it. We said, I would like to offer you other tools. They didn't want the other tools. We advised them that selling the parking ramps was a bad idea because you don't sell assets that generate money. And also, the amount of money they say they're going to get for the parking ramp is highly speculative. All this does is kick the can. It's a gimmick. It doesn't solve next year's problem. Maybe it solves this year's problem if everything works right. The way to get out of our financial mess is to come clean, to acknowledge what is our long-term structural deficit, have a plan to do that, and you restructure, just like the private sector would do. That's the way to get the city back on track, but also to avoid catastrophic increases in property taxes. Buffalo deserves better. They want their basic services back, and that's what I'm going to give them when I'm mayor of the city of Buffalo.
All right, thank you. Mr. Scanlon, we turn now to you for our next question. Your critics have described you as Byron Brown 2.0. In fact, you heavily backed Brown during his write-in campaign in the last mayoral election. What will you do to assure voters that you are not coming to the table with the baggage of the previous administration, despite your ties to it?
I think that I've displayed that very clearly in my first 8 months as mayor. We showed up day one, faced with a number of different challenges, and got to work. We passed the largest capital budget in the city's history, working with our partners in government and the Buffalo Public Schools. We put together a budget that sets the city of Buffalo on a path to fiscal solvency. And as far as other plans that are out there, we will not saddle residents with $75, $150, $200 million worth of additional debt that the taxpayers are responsible to pay back. Instead, we will bring $40, $50 million in through the purchase of those ramps, in addition to the occupancy tax, ensure a recurring revenue. If you look at the legislation, how it works out, And then we will also alleviate the city of Buffalo of those maintenance and capital costs. And I can tell you, I think to your previous question, it wasn't the senator's plan for deficit borrowing wasn't passed because, like most people I talked to, I don't think the members of the New York State Legislature thought it was a good idea. Again, it's akin to borrowing money or using your credit card to pay your mortgage when you can't afford it. And I would ask the senator, if someone came to his house and offered him, if his house was valued at $500,000, offered him $500,000 for the house, said you can stay in the house, you can hold title to the house, we'll also fix up any windows, roof, landscaping, whatever else you might need. And then on top of that, I'm going to throw a lemonade stand out front, and we'll split any of the proceeds with you as well. I think he would take that deal, and that's the Buffalo Parking and Mobility Authority.
Mr. Ryan, you have a minute 30?
I do want to remind you, gentlemen, based on the rules, the minute 30 is for everyone during the rebuttal process. But Mr. Ryan, we will start with you.
The acting mayor has a fundamental misunderstanding of municipal finance. Your house is not the same as running a $600 million city. I mean, he just said that he's going to do short-term borrowing, which is the most expensive of borrowing that you can do. When businesses get into a jam, they restructure their debt. That's how you were able to keep services going and to avoid the catastrophic increases in property taxes. Right now, the city of Buffalo doesn't know if they're going to be in balance at the end of the year. But I think there's some irony to this idea that the acting mayor is going to get us out of this mess. He seems to forget that for the last 12 years, he's been in leadership of in City Hall. He's been chair of the Finance Committee. He's been the president of the City Council, and he voted on every one of the unbalanced budgets. He should know how unbalanced they are because he voted for them.
Gentlemen, thank you. We're moving
Mr.
on.
Wyatt?
We are moving on.
We
have lots of 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
The fundamental
30 seconds for Mr.
misunderstanding
Wyatt.
is, I mean, Dave pointed at me. So.
There was, Mr. Scanlon had a rebut for 30 seconds. 30 seconds, Mr. Scanlon.
Senator Ryan's the one with the fundamental misunderstanding.
He said he was ready
Wyatt
to
had
go.
his hand up first.
Yeah.
Mr. Wyatt has the
Go
next
ahead.
question. But Mr. Scanlon was going to rebut. Is that true? Yes, Mr. Scanlon was going to rebut. 30 seconds to Mr. Scanlon, please.
Yeah, the fundamental misunderstanding here is Senator Ryan. He doesn't understand city government and the role that the council plays. We cannot increase taxes. We have very limited authority to do those types of things. So when he talks about a fundamental misunderstanding and the fact that I've been in office for 12 years, 13 years, that's the exact same period of time that the senator's been in Albany, and we have not received $1 increase to our permanent state aid payment. So I wish he would go back to Albany and continue to fight for Buffalo to bring the state resources to the city.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon. Mr. Wyatt, to you now. You have often positioned yourself as a contrarian to the decisions made by the previous administration and the rest of the council. You began some of your talking points tonight. To that point, you were one of the two council members, as you mentioned, who voted against the budget last week. You voted it down in previous years as well. The question is, if elected, how will you work to unify government?
Well, Dave, I think one of the things that has happened so often in city government is that the council has always been the last to know. There are selected few that the mayor will work with and come through with things, but we need a unified front. We all need to be coming together, and we all need to be talking to the residents. The residents are the one that's footing the bill in a lot of cases, and they don't get the conversation. So recently, I went forth in asking the council, working with the council members, to change the date for the receive the budget. It didn't work as well as I thought because I thought it would have been more engagement. It was only 1 or 2 engagements, but I think that's critically important. If we're going to change Buffalo, we're going to find the priorities that we can afford to address. We have to put the taxpayer in place, and we have to hear from them. In these other scenarios, they're not talking about the taxpayer. They're talking about their own issues. They're talking about going back and forth between them. But the people who are on the streets right now, the people who are making only $30,000 a year, the median income is $48,000. But we have people in City Hall who are making 6 figures. That doesn't make sense. And it doesn't equate to a fiscally sound budget, and it doesn't equate to long-term sustainability. And so, again, we have to start looking at what things we need to cut. I just looked at the comptroller's report. She talked about in her report, we have to right-size government. I've been saying that over and over again. Nobody else was talking about that. The overtime is something that we just ignore, but it's $127 million over 5 years. How do we continue to do that and expect to have quality services or good, decent services for the taxpayers?
Mr. White, thank you very much. Mr. Tyson Thompson, this next question is for you. Buffalo is the second largest city in the state. You've never been elected to an office. Your professional political experience starts and stops in the state assembly, where you served as communications director for Crystal People Stokes, the majority leader. You also have not held a campaign event since your initial announcement to join the campaign. Why should voters have confidence in a candidate with such little experience and name recognition who has done little to change that fact throughout this campaign?
Oh, no, Dave, I think you're quite wrong on that. I'm a product of Buffalo and, a son of the city. I've been engaged my entire life. I grew up on Buffalo's east side, born and raised in one of the worst zip codes, not only in this city, but in this country. I've had to work my way up through every system and structure, every place, going against systems and structures that often make me feel unheard and unseen. My entire ethos, pathos, and logos has been about transformation. I started off as a kid working in charities and pot kitchens, going to school to get a degree in political science and criminal justice, interning even for the county Democrats, working on campaigns throughout this country, becoming a philanthropic fundraiser, raising millions of dollars for nonprofits all across this country for transformation. When I was back in Buffalo, I was working at the vac site during the pandemic. That's why Crystal People Stokes chose to pick me, because of the good work that I was doing. Not for popularity or for notoriety, but for the work, for transforming our communities. You see, I deserve to be, or I'm running to be mayor because I believe in this city, right? But I also believe we have a lot of work to do. There are structural issues that are going on, and we can't get past them because we have the same old leaders doing the same old thing, but yet the Buffalo stays the same way. Only thing that changes is these guys' titles. I'm running for mayor because I have the skill capacity to do the job, and from day one, that's what I plan to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I rebut?
There was no...
He said the same old leader. So he's talking about us, so.
Yeah, I am.
Mr. Wyatt, sure.
I'm talking about...
I don't consider myself
for you
old,
guys. Yeah.
but I definitely...
Gentlemen, we have a minute 30. Mr. Wyatt?
Yeah, I don't consider myself old, Dave, but at the end of the day, I think I've been one of the loudest voices on the council as it relates to these issues, especially as it relates to finance, because I have the most financial experience than most of these people up on the stage. And at the end of the day, the things that I've talked about as far as having conversation with the community on how we make a budget, because we did participatory budgeting some years ago, and I thought it was a good idea, but we got away from that because it didn't let the mayor do what he wanted to do. We got to stop letting people just do what they want to do. Again, as I talked about the salaries, the overtime, those are the biggest things on the table. And it doesn't mean that we have to cut police and fire, because I've never said that. I've never said cut police and fire. I said cut the overtime. And I made a proposal during this last budget to cut $10 million of the overtime. It was met with deaf ears. Why? Because the administration, it controls a lot of the demands or the ideas of the council, because they're all beholden to one person. And that's the reason why we're in the position we're in right now, because we can't make sound decisions because the second floor dictates all those things. But at the end of the day, these things fall back on the taxpayer over and over again. And again, in 2025, it happens again for 2026.
Mr. Scanlon, obviously Mr. Wyatt invoked...
The request to cut the budget line in half was fallen on deaf ears because there's contracts that exist that we are contractually obligated to, that were collectively bargained, that we have to pay overtime for certain things. The council member mentions the number of fires are down, certain types of crime are down. We don't have a volunteer fire department. We don't call people in from home when the fire breaks out. They have to be staffed at the hospital. There's minimum staffing that exists and things like that. And if you take a look at the overtime numbers, unfortunately, you see the expenditure going up. But if you look at the number of overtime hours being worked since I became mayor, they are trending downward. There's managerial rights that we've implemented in order to make sure that those numbers continue to go down.
Mr. White, the next question is actually to you.
I think,
Mr. Whitfield.
I think I was included in that in terms of experience in that.
This next question is going to be yours.
Okay.
You have 30 seconds to respond, Mr. Whitfield.
Well, I'm the only candidate up here who has managed people, managed a budget of over $60 million, has managed every crisis in the city over a course of 40 years. I'm the only candidate with that experience, and so I take great umbrage with that being, linked as a politician or whatever. So that's all I would say. I'm the only candidate that has that experience, and the mayor is a manager, not a legislator.
Thank you.